If I could go back to when I was first diagnosed with ADHD, there are a lot of things I would change immediately. None of them made my house perfect, but together they made my home easier to manage. I spent years trying organizing tips that looked great, but they completely fell apart when life happened. And some seem almost too simple, but those simple changes are the ones that work on my worst days. ADHD home change number 1 is I started solving for what annoyed me every day problem. For years, I thought I needed to organize my entire house. Every weekend, I'd go looking around, see dozens of things that needed my attention. These same little frustrations happened every single day. And one thing I've learned about ADHD, the biggest problems aren't always the biggest messes. They're often these tiny little frustrations that happen over and over and over again. And those little annoyances drain your energy and make your home feel harder to live in. So instead of asking, what should I organize next? I started asking, what is one thing that annoys me every day? Sometimes it was reaching for paper towels and they were too far away. Other times it was searching for scissors when I needed them, or even just walking across my home just looking for something I needed and I could not find it. And once I saw those daily annoyances, my home became easier to use. And here's something important to remember. Don't organize everything. Fix the things that frustrate you every day. And one thing that frustrates me is I have way too many hangers in my closet. My closet is filled with hangers, which is good when I need a hanger, but I have way too much. They're taking up way too much space. You see right here how many hangers I'm holding in my hands? Way too many, and I have a bunch more in my closet. If this is my favorite solution using a space-saving hanger, this thing is great because now you have a hanger that has 5 different places for 5 different pieces of clothing that you hang vertically instead of horizontally. And because you can hang your clothes flat, the clothes that you have folded or you want to make sure you don't have wrinkles on or wrinkled, then this allows you to keep those clothes wrinkle-free. ADHD home change number 2 is I stopped keeping things just in case problem. For years, I kept some things because you never know, someday I might need this. An old phone charger, kitchen gadgets, which I have way too many in my kitchen that I don't use, a broken organizer I plan to fix, half empty bottles of products I didn't like, I have shampoo and body wash I just don't use anymore, extra cups, extra containers, random stuff altogether that's probably going to go when a drunk drawer just fills up my shelves in my cabinet. And the thing is, none of these things seem like a big deal themselves. But when you put them all together, it makes my home feel crowded. Every time I opened a drawer or a cabinet, I had to look through things and search for things to try to find what I was looking for. And by the time I found what I actually wanted to use, I was just frustrated. And here's one thing I've learned is every item in your home actually requires a little bit of your attention. Even if you're not actually using it, your brain still has to process it. You have to look past it, you have to move it out of the way, organize it, decide whether you want to keep it. And with ADHD, those extra decisions add up quickly. The more unnecessary things that I kept, the harder it was to find something I actually wanted to use or needed. So here's what I did. I stopped asking, could I use this someday? Instead, I started asking, is this thing that I'm keeping going to make my life easier now? And if the answer was no, it was probably time to let it go. That didn't mean throwing away things I genuinely needed. Like for example, I'm not throwing away a fire extinguisher. It meant being honest about the things I was keeping because of guilt, wishful thinking, or just because I spent money on them years ago. As I removed these extra items, something unexpected happened. My home didn't just have less clutter, it became easier to maintain. Cleaning took less time, finding things definitely became easier, putting things away became quicker, and everything just felt lighter. Before, I used to think that having more things meant I was prepared. Now I realize having fewer unnecessary things means less time searching, less time cleaning, and less time making decisions. It was giving myself permission to actually get rid of the things that were making my life harder every day. And look right here at these cords right here. I don't even know what some of these cords actually go to. I know I have some phone cords for the previous iPhone I have that don't fit the current iPhone I have. I have old headsets I can't use anymore. I have cords that don't work anymore that I can't even use on my computer or anything. They're just cords I'm keeping just in case somebody else might need them. Then I have the cord right there. Or I get something that I can use that still requires me to use that cord. But here's the thing. I don't need these cords. I can get rid of them. I will get rid of them. I will declutter them or just throw them away. If you're enjoying the content and getting value out of the content, then subscribe to the channel and like the video. ADHD home change number 3 is I started asking why before buying another organizer problem. I used to think every problem could be solved by buying another organizer. Drawer organizers, bins, containers, storage boxes. I'd organize everything. But the thing is, I still somehow had the same problem a month later. And that's because the organizer wasn't solving the real issue. The problem was something was inconvenient, hidden, or harder to maintain. Now, before buying anything, I ask, what problem am I trying to solve? Because sometimes I don't need another organizer. I just need to move it like 6 feet or a couple inches here or there. So what you want to do is solve the problem first and then decide if you need a new organizer. And here's an example of what happens when you just buy containers and don't actually solve the problem. You see on this counter, there is a whole bunch of containers. I keep pulling out more and more. And I end up with a whole bunch of containers that I actually do not use at all. And the problem can still actually keep existing, keep being a problem because I haven't solved the real issue. ADHD home change number 4 is I started timing the jobs I avoided problem. I used to avoid certain chores because they felt like they would take forever. Cleaning the bathroom, doing dishes, folding laundry. In my head, these became huge projects. ADHD and time blindness can make a 5-minute job feel like a 30-minute job. And when we don't know how long something's going to take, our brain just assumes the worst. And so I started timing them. Cleaning the bathroom didn't take 30 minutes. It took about 7 or maybe 8 minutes. Doing the dishes didn't take 20 minutes. It maybe took 6 or maybe 7. And once I knew the real time, a huge mental barrier was removed. So measure your chores and don't let your ADHD guess for you. And here's an example. I am going to fold my clothes, but I'm going to fold them in a certain amount of time. You see right here, my visual timer. When I actually turn the dial, a color appears indicating how much time I have left to actually complete the task. And then once all the color is gone, it does blink and show a light on there. So I know the time is completely done. And you see me starting to fold the different clothes and everything. And then you see how much time is left when I finish folding the clothes as well. And you can see that I folded the pile of clothes and I still have time left. ADHD home change number 5 is I started making my home easier to reset problem. I noticed that every room in my home started to slowly drift into chaos. And when that happened, cleaning just felt very overwhelming. I wasn't failing because the room got messy. I was failing because getting it back under control just felt like too much effort. So now every room has a simple reset. A basket, a tray, one obvious place for things to collect there. Now I can walk into a room and have it looking better in just 1 or 2 minutes. So what you want to do is don't make your house hard to clean, make it easier to reset. And here's an example. These are my Blu-rays and DVDs and they're all spread out over the floor. And then I have a bin right there that they need to go in. And you can watch the process as I go through and put the DVDs and put the Blu-rays in those different containers. And it's not going to take me that long. And it looks much better when it's all complete. I created a free ADHD declutter checklist. The link is in the description to get the checklist. ADHD home change number 6 is I simplified instead of organizing more problem. I kept adding more storage, more containers, more just categories in general. So instead of making my life easier, I made it much harder to maintain. And that's because every extra category is another decision I have to make. Every extra container is something else I have to maintain. And the thing is, ADHD already gives us enough decisions. So I started combining things, using fewer containers, keeping fewer categories, making decisions easier. Instead of creating more organization, I created less complexity. And the important thing I learned is simple usually beats organized. And here's an example. I have way too many ties. Trying to organize them, it's not working. The ties are just too many to go in baskets and containers. So what I do, I take all the ties and put them into a bigger container. And that container being big enough, now my ties are organized. Even if they're not folded, that's okay. ADHD home change number 7, I started testing everything on my ADHD worst day problem. I built systems that worked when I had energy, but they completely fell apart when I was exhausted. Most organizing advice assumes you'll always feel motivated, but real life doesn't work that way. Now I ask one question: would I still do this on my worst ADHD day? And if the answer is no, I simplify until the answer is yes. Your system should not depend on motivation. And here's an example. I come in with groceries in my hand. I'm done with the grocery shop. I now have to put my keys on my counter. I'm going through, digging in my pocket, trying to get the keys out of my pocket. I eventually get them out of my pocket and onto the counter. Now, the thing about it is, When you have groceries in one hand, when you have something occupying one hand, trying to do everything with the other hand is difficult. It may be overwhelming for you. It's not going to be something that you want to do, especially on your worst day. And here's a solution. Just carry up 2 bags of groceries in your hand that is enough for each hand. Put the groceries down and then go back and get the keys out of your pocket. ADHD home change number 8, I started caring more about recovery than falling behind problem. Whenever my home got messy, I felt like I had failed. And that feeling made me avoid cleaning even longer. The goal isn't to never fall behind. Everybody falls behind at some time. The important part is how quickly you recover. I stopped aiming for perfection. Instead, I built quick recovery routines. 10-minute resets, 1-room resets, 1 small win. That kept small messes from becoming huge messes. And remember this, recover faster instead of trying to be perfect. And you can see right here, my kitchen is a mess. I need to actually go through, clean it, and reset it. But I'm not going to do it all at once. I'm gonna take different areas of my kitchen and reset it and clean it just one area at a time, because a partial reset is still working towards the full reset if I want to do that later, but I don't have to do it on the same day. I don't have to do it on the same time. I'm just trying to get it to where it's good enough for whatever I need to do in the kitchen that day. ADHD home change number 9, I made my home work with my brain instead of against it problem. For years, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't disciplined enough, organized enough, motivated enough. Eventually, I realized the problem wasn't me. My home expected me to remember everything, notice everything, stay motivated every day. And that's a lot to ask for an ADHD brain. Instead of trying to become someone else, I changed my home. My house reminds me, supports me, reduces decisions, and makes good habits easier. And here are some examples of areas of my kitchen, how they were before, and then how they are after, to make it more simple, to make it easier for me to find things and remember things while I'm in my kitchen. Looking back, none of these changes were expensive. Most of them were simple, but together they completely changed how my home feels to live in. I wish I had made these changes years ago, because they didn't just make my home easier to maintain, they made everyday life with ADHD feel more manageable. And if you're wondering, how can I get started with ADHD organization? I do have a playlist. When that box comes up, just click the playlist. It will take you to the videos that will help you with that.